Okay, now you can hear me because I can hear myself through Dana's computer. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, so just to reiterate from the last call, I need to go back one slide if whoever did that. I don't know if Gary or, okay, when you moved your computer, it must have happened. Okay, so just so that everybody's on the same page, and we've had lots of questions and we fully expect it and we want them. We want to be able to answer your questions. So I'm just going to review these waiver extensions, number 33, 34, 35, and 36. So number 33 is an extension of the non-congregate feeding, which was originally waiver number 2 when all of this started, then became waiver 22 and is now number 33. This waiver will allow you all at the schools to continue to feed students in a non-congregate setting, but through the National School Lunch School Breakfast Program for the entire 2021 school year. So what that means is many districts out there, if not all, are doing a in-person, kids coming to school, the traditional having classroom sessions and everything, but they also are having a virtual option at your district, and that is something that your district has decided to do. So those students that are opting into that virtual option at your district, you can feed them by grab and go or a delivery model through the National School Lunch Program, School Breakfast Program, claimed categorically as free, reduced, or paid. Just that's what that waiver is allowing. The next waiver was extended. It was originally waiver number 1, which allowed for mealtime flexibility. It then became extended to 23 and has now been extended to number 34. This waiver will allow you to send multiple meals home, possibly for multiple days, if that's what you choose to do, for students participating in your district virtual classes rather than being on site. So that does mean that on Monday, you could provide breakfast and lunch for Monday, and you could do it for Tuesday or Wednesday if you want to do it daily, or you could do multiple meals Monday through Friday. Again, claimed through the National School Lunch School Breakfast Program, claimed categorically free, reduced, or paid. That's not changing. The next one was number 35, parent and guardian pickup. That was originally number 5 when all this started. It was extended to 25 and is now number 35. This waiver will allow schools to continue to allow parents to pick up meals for their child or children that are enrolled in the school system and are taking classes virtually, because your district chose a virtual option as well as an in-person option. The school must submit a plan to us on how they will ensure that that meal that is being picked up will go to an enrolled student. Therefore, that means there's going to have to be a roster checkoff, even for CEP and provision schools, for pickup, not for kids on-site eating.
Okay, sorry folks, we're having some technical difficulties. Can anyone hear me? Somebody type in the chat box if you can hear Dana talking. That would be a no. Hang on, let me type in the chat box that we're having difficulties. Can't get back to the chat box. We are.
I didn't even get a warning that it was low.
Okay, you can hear me? Okay. Sorry, Jennifer's computer just absolutely died. So.
Didn't even get a warning.
Go.
Okay, sorry you all. I didn't even get a warning that it was dead. So we were at the parent pickup. You do have to have a plan for the parent pickup for meals. If it boots back up, let me know. I just jumped over here to Dana's. The plan, much like you would have had to do for summer feeding, but we need a new one because Those are done. Those dealt with summer feeding plans. We need a plan for National School Lunch, School Breakfast. And as I stated before my computer died, even if you're a provision or CEP school and you have a virtual option through your district and you're going to feed meals, you have to still be able to ensure that that meal that's being picked up by a parent or guardian is going to a child. That's part of the plan. So you will have to check names off of a roster. Okay, waiver number 36, which was originally waiver 4, then 13, then 24, then 26, now 36, that's the meal pattern flexibility waiver. The meal pattern flexibility waiver, again, must have information turned into us and we have to approve it. We have forms for these. You need to reach out to your area consultant. This is only allowed if you have exhausted all options to obtain the food that you're asking a waiver for. It's not a blanket waiver to the meal patterns, and it's done by component. It's not just in general, I can't get 2 things. And again, it's not just going to one vendor, it's going to multiple vendors. Sorry about that. All of these require a plan, and you reach out to your area consultant for that. They have the information. They will be collecting it from you. They will be approving it. Again, all 4 of these that we just discussed are through the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program and claimed categorically. There is not an option when school starts to feed all children free, nor through summer feeding or SSO. Okay, the next one is the waiver for offer versus serve in high school at lunch if you choose to use that because you're serving in the classroom and it would be easier for you to have all the meal to give them everything versus being able to implement offer versus serve, which would be hard in the classroom to do it the way it is supposed to be implemented. So if you're going to participate in the flexibility for offer versus serve for lunch at the high school level, again, this will require some information that you need to fill out for your area consultant. Okay, so there's been a few questions regarding virtual students going on out there and needs some clarity to that. Up on the screen right now, it says feeding virtual students attending your district's virtual option. Most every district on all the calls I've been sitting in are giving an option for virtual and on-site school. So if your district is offering a virtual model for this school year because of COVID, you can serve those students. And that's what this bullet says. If a student would normally be attending a brick and mortar school building, if it weren't for COVID-19, and they would have access to meals, if you still will be allowed to feed them on the National School Lunch, School Breakfast, even if they're choosing the district's virtual option this school year. You will claim them categorically, free, reduced, and paid through the National School Lunch, School Breakfast program, and this can be done in a grab and go or delivery option. Okay, when I say your district's virtual option, so if your district has a virtual option this year and any student enrolls in that and they want to be fed, they go to, and they're attending or taking the virtual option, they can come pick up a meal, or if you choose to deliver, I know there's schools out there that are going to deliver. I just have not heard of any yet, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. We mostly have heard about grab and go. What virtual students you cannot feed because they aren't enrolled in your district would be, and I don't know all the virtual options out there that are full virtual. They don't attend a brick and mortar. They don't have an option of a brick and mortar. Those are those kids that you cannot claim. If your district is having a virtual option, and enrolled in your school, you can claim them. Okay, next slide, please. Unless I can do it from here, Dana, can I? No.
Make the mouse move to the big screen.
But your screen doesn't have. Is it normally showing on there?
Well, it did for us this morning, and then when I opened this PowerPoint, it just quit.
Oh, your last training it was doing?
It was working perfect.
Okay.
Last training.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so again, we've talked about each one of these. So this is just the non-congregate feeding waiver. It's good for the entire year. It's effective for the National School Lunch, School Breakfast Program. And it's for all children enrolled in the school. It would allow meals to be sent home with students or a grab and go setting if you had virtual option at your school. And again, you need to reach out to your area consultant because there's information that has to be filled out and approved. Mealtime flexibility, again, claiming them through National School Lunch, School Breakfast, free, reduced, or paid, claiming them categorically. These do apply to CACFP, but at this point, they aren't applying to the at-risk because there is not a waiver at this point for the educational and enrichment component on at-risk. So if you participate in the at-risk program and you have students that are coming to the school and there's an after-school program, those meals can be claimed, but none of the meals going home because there's not a waiver to waive the at-risk or at-risk educational enrichment component. And again, we have to track these so that there's information that you need to reach out to your area consultant for as well. The next one is the pickup. Again, have to have a plan in place for pickup to make sure that the meal is going to the parent or guardian, which would be the most ideal way would be a roster checklist. And again, reach out to your area consultant because there's tracking that has to be done for this as well and approval that has to be done of your plan. Extension, the meal pattern flexibility, again, you must exhaust all options before requesting it. It's done on a case-by-case basis. It's not a blanket waiver to the meal patterns, and you need to exhaust all your options. It is component specific. You are still expected to meet the meal patterns for the grade level that you're serving. It doesn't cover a supply shortage for containers and such for grab and go. And again, you need to reach out to your area consultant for this one as well. And the offer versus serve is if you're going to serve in the classroom possibly next year and you don't want to have to worry about offer versus serve, this is the way to go. Ask for this offer versus serve waiver for the high school kids if eating in the classroom. Okay. Dates for some upcoming training. We had an ABVM training yesterday and had over 500 participants, so that's awesome. We will have a repeat of that ABVM on August 6th from 1 to 4. And as a reminder, you don't have to attend both ABVM trainings. It is a repeat of yesterday's, unless you want to hear it again, and that's okay too. We're going to have some procurement training on July 28th and August 5th. One on July 28th is in the morning, and July 28th is in the afternoon. August 5th is in the morning. And there's also going to be a cafeteria managers on July 31st, and it'll be a long one, but there's not a good way to break that one out. Okay, I'm going to advance this slide and hop back on my computer. The next Zoom for COVID like this is August 5th at 2:30. Give me 1 second to move back to where I was. Okay, sorry about that, everybody. I've got power now. And then I think the next slide is just Q&As. Yeah. Oh. I've lost the mouse again. There it is. There are lots of questions in the chat already, so give us just a second, pull it up and scroll through it. We'll go to the top. I will do a better job of reading the question.
Tried to answer most of them. So
Volume's too low. Let me, okay. Oh, and you know what? Since I didn't have the chat up, okay, I'll go back to your computer. I will put the dates back up. Does the summer program have to end? Yes, does the summer program have to end when the first official day of school starts? Yes, it does. Is the cafeteria manager's workshop one that the whole kitchen staff needs to see? That's up to you. If you have a lot of new staff, I would recommend it. Is it up to each district if they choose to feed kids doing online school or not? I have posed that question to USDA and I have not received an answer yet. So that will be answered in the Q&A when we repost it. Let's see, I'm gonna scroll back up. So, okay, I've gotten that one. Yes, I'm gonna go back to those, Becky. There are more questions. Okay, so Crystal, you said, can we still feed our quarantine kids? Does that mean if they come to school maybe and they end up possibly contracting the virus and they go home to quarantine? Yes, okay. Yeah, that would be because they would probably ultimately, possibly, that doesn't sound right, but go to a virtual option for while they're at home. You might check and find that out. If that's what they're doing, then yeah, they could come get a meal. The reimbursement rates were issued this afternoon, and we are in the process of getting those updated. The one caveat to that is we have to receive the commodity rate, and those never have come out at the same time. They typically come out a day or two after. I've reached out to Gina at Commodities to see, and she hasn't gotten back to me yet. So once we get the commodity rate, we can get those in the system, and they will be updated the same day. Wouldn't hurt to remind people if they don't offer meals to virtuals, they are low income. Hurting your low income and not free reduced. Okay. Are we going to have a second cafeteria managers besides July 31st? Have we decided? At this point, no, but if we need to, we might. The problem with, we just found out not too long ago with anything that we do in a Zoom setting like this, we have to put, when we repost it, we have to have closed captions on them. And so they're working that out downstairs in our communications department. And there's a cost per minute for the length of time. And then there's also a process that has to be handled. So we have to be 508 compliant. If the students all eat in the cafeteria, does that mean that you can't do the offer versus serve flexibility? No, I don't believe that. I think if you apply for it, that it's acceptable. And again, remember, it's only required for lunch for the high school level. If you apply for the offer versus serve waiver, but end up serving in the cafeteria, I would just withdraw your offer versus serve waiver if you don't want to serve all components and you want them to pick 3 of the 5. The waivers to fill out, you need to contact your area child nutrition consultant that normally comes out to your school to do reviews and provide technical assistance and such. Will you get an email? No, you need to reach out to your area consultant. We aren't emailing the waivers out. What if we go to a long-term school closing? Can we still only feed our enrolled students? At this point, yes, that is correct. What it will take to go back to what we just dealt with as far as going to SSO or SFSP is it will have to go back to there being what USDA terms an unanticipated school meal closure. And there's 2 options that can happen. USDA can do it, or our state is declared a disaster. We would fall under if there was a disaster in the state. If a tornado had hit or a flood had hit in an area, we go to a disaster. So that's going to be handled on a case-by-case basis at this point. We can't just do a blanket. There's a lot of steps to that. Okay. Can we submit the waivers for just in case we use them? You could, but you also would need to let your consultant know when they start, because that's how we have to track it. So there would be constant communication that, okay, here's my mealtime waiver, I'm going to start using that now. Or here's my meal pattern flexibility waiver. It's going to be really hard to do it ahead of time. That would be the biggest thing, because especially with meal patterns, you can't just do it just in case right now, because you don't know what you're potentially running into. You don't know what they might be out of down the road. That would be hard to do. The meeting recordings, again, we have to have closed captioning on them to post them, and so we can't do that right now. They're working out a process downstairs to make that a little bit easier, but it's not done yet, and there's a fee that we have to go through, and then there's a process just like you guys have to go through for POs. We have to do that at the state agency as well. If we offer versus serve brick and mortar students, can we not offer versus serve virtual students that are drive-through? No, those would be full, you just give them everything. Your kids coming to pick up meals, you're going to give them everything. Dana I believe, has gotten that dates back on the screen. But can we do the waiver for high school students this year and not do offer versus serve? If you submit a waiver for your high school students to not do offer versus serve because you're serving in the classroom, you wouldn't do offer versus serve for them. Word on the street, USDA food value is 20, okay, well, that's okay. I have to go with what USDA posts though, so thank you for that information, but I have to go with what's in the Federal Register. And it may be that, and Gina might be able to let me know that. Is there an online cafeteria manager's option? There's not, no. Still recommend to apply for SSO now, just in case. I do recommend applying for SSO just in case. Will salad bars be allowed? Again, reach out to your health department. I can't answer that. I don't recommend it because of the number of hands that will be touching the tongs unless you pre-pack, put everything in a little cup and they're allowed to take a cup, or you have a teacher, not a teacher. You have a child nutrition staff member there to be the only one touching the tongs. Touching all those little hands, touching those tongs is just an absolute breeding ground for the virus. I definitely would reach out to your local county health department. Steve, if you provide meals to the charter sites, is it correct to assume that they have to keep their own rosters for meal counting and claiming? I would agree with that. When you are in a typical setting, are they in charge of keeping their own counting and claiming, edit checks and such? It would be basically the same thing if that's the case. Your contract probably states, and I don't know this because I haven't looked at it, but that you are just providing meals. Oh gosh, I jumped too soon. I jumped too quick. It's jumping around today. We will have a virtual 1 day a week. Do we serve on the virtual day? Are they counting that virtual day as a school day? That will make a difference too. If it is if it's being counted as a school day, then yes, you can feed them. If it's not being counted as a school day, no, you cannot. If we are feeding elementary students in their classroom, do we need the offer versus serve waiver? It's just high school, because high school is the only time offer versus serve is required at lunch. Yes, the procurement on August 5th would be a repeat. Each one of the 4 waiver extensions, 33, 34, 35, and 36, all have a plan that have to be submitted. Contact your area consultant. Yeah. Well, oh, the actual USDA waivers can be found on cars. Sorry about that. We have to follow what our agency allows us to do as far as closed captioning. Any recommendations for self-serve salad bars and students getting their own a la carte items? Again, the number of hands touching the tongs is the concern. I, again, would defer to what the your local county health department tells you. Okay, that threw me. The news that Dana was waiting was that the rates had come out. Yes, but we need the commodity rate. Oh, it jumped again, darn it. Okay, sorry, let me go to my mouse. Maybe that will help me.
You have to do a procurement plan, procurement every year, yes.
Yeah, procurement, Do virtual or distance learners count towards your eligibles? Yes, they would. If you have the free and reduced application to know, yes. Newbie, do we have to do a procurement training? No, not necessarily, but a procure your goods and services, yes, and a procurement plan. If it doesn't change from year to year, you don't have to update it, but if it changes, you have to update it each year. So if you have drive-through and they are not offer versus serve, this is where the waiver comes in to play. No, if you're doing grab and go or delivery, you're going to be giving them, regardless of what grade or age they are, well, grade really, everything. The only time this offer versus serve would come into play is classroom setting, taking meals to a classroom where you can't, because you can't do, just like in a drive-through or pickup, you can't implement offer versus serve the way the regulations say it has to be implemented. No, cafeteria managers training on 731 is not in person. We can't do any in-person trainings at this point. It's virtual, just like these others. If we apply for SSO, what dates are the begin and end, and what date for the week review? Well, we would probably ask that. That's a good question, honestly. You can put a date in there at this point, and if it goes to having to go back to SSO, we would ask that you would go in and update your dates. And then the 3-week review would start from the time you actually started the program, from the updated date that you put in there. Are milk boxes like salad bars? Honestly, I hadn't really thought about that, Jim. They'd be pretty similar. Did you know you're on camera? Our milk boxes, they're a lot like salad bars. Sorry, I couldn't resist, Dana. We need a little comic relief right now. Her face, well, you saw her face. She's on camera. Anyway, she quickly got off camera, ladies and gentlemen. Anyway, yeah, they're a lot like salad bars, but I mean, in the perfect world that we all live in, you know, the kids are just grabbing a milk, but I know that the little kids, if there's a picture on it, they want a certain picture. They are very similar to milk boxes. You are correct. I hadn't even thought about that. You might check with your health department about that. They do have to have the choice. I mean, you could have someone hand it, you know, asking them milk, chocolate, white, whatever the case may be, but they do have to have the option to pick. The next one, can you have 2 menus? I mean, you could have 2 menus, but again, for your grab and go or your delivery, you're going to give them everything. And that would be really hard to know what one they want to take when they come. And I do have a question to USDA as well. And we didn't have our Tuesday call this week. It's tomorrow morning, so I might have answers to these tomorrow. Someone has posed the question to us, can we tell them that if we're going to do if we're going to do grab and go for our virtual kids, can we tell them we need to know by 9 in the morning that they need a lunch for that day? Or can we set up a time frame to ensure that we have enough food, or we're not over preparing, which is understandable too. And I don't have an answer to that yet. I'm hoping I will tomorrow, so that we can address it in the question and answers when we put these out. How do we fill out the SSO? This says SSP, but SSO application when we don't know what months we might be closed? Well, again, I would go ahead and put dates, but you would have to go back and put the actual dates of when, if and when we would have to maybe go to SSO again. On your renewal agreement, we show that we do offer versus serve for grades 5 through 12. Do we need to change it for grades 5 through 8 for this situation? If I would, or I believe there's a place to make comments. I would indicate in the comments also if that, for that situation. Pre-made salads, yes, you can do pre-made salads. That's acceptable. You need to meet the meal patterns for whatever you're putting in there to be able to credit it. If you have one virtual school weekly, if you have 1 day virtual school weekly, do you need to follow? Yes, you would. Yes, that is correct. Do you need to follow the 4-day meal pattern for brick and mortar school? Yes, you would. Sorry, I need to read the rest of the question out loud. Welcome, Kathy. Can we require virtual students to pre-order to get a meal? I have that question posed to USDA right now in hopes to reduce waste and meals not picked up. I totally get it, and I'm hoping I get that answered tomorrow so that we can have it in the Q&A, Shelley. This person said I would say no self-serve at this time as all buffets and salad bars and restaurants have been discontinued. And that may be what you find out from the health department. You guys need to contact the health department about that. Self-serve, salad bars, things like that. Offerings bars, extras bars, stuff like that. You need to reach out to them. I can find the waivers in cars. They're under the COVID-19, under the 2020 tab at the top in cars, under other documents, and then it's under COVID-19 heading. Why would we need to apply for SSO? If we close school, students will go into distance learning with the same school calendar. Wouldn't we be able to utilize the waiver to feed virtual? Yes, and I believe that is going to be the case. But again, we can't predict the future because I never would have dreamed we'd be in a pandemic right now either. But the choice is yours if you want to apply for it or not. We're not telling you to. We're not telling you not to. It will just save a little bit of time down the road. But I truly feel that even if we go to full distance learning or virtual learning because something's happened at your school, they're going to say to stay on National School Lunch, School Breakfast. And but there's always that possibility that something could change, because just as soon as I say it's going to happen tomorrow on that call, something could be different with USDA. I just have to go with what we have right now. Will we be allowed to fill grab-and-go plates and allow students to pick up pre-packaged side items to remain offer versus serve? You think, yeah, it kind of depends, and I'm not following that completely. We'll be allowed to fill grab-and-go plates and allow students to pick up prepackaged side items to remain offer versus serve. Is that, Karen, I'm going to ask, is that for like classroom setting serving? Or, I mean, you say grab and go, do you mean when a child comes up virtually? We might need a little more information on that. I've answered the SSO application dates. Well, this one is pertaining to months. I would check the school months, and we would have to, you would have to uncheck any that have already passed that didn't have SSO. Do we do high school menu on drive-through pickup because all students can pick up at any site? Yes, and I did pose that question to USDA because on the last call you all said if they're coming to, because Shauna, your school, I believe you said that your point of sale system, they could go to any school and it would differentiate and claim them under the correct school site. So if that's the case, then they could go to an elementary school. A high school student could go to an elementary, but the high school student would have to receive the high school meal pattern. That was, USDA did say that. So that's something that would have to be worked through on your side. They do have to receive the menu for the grade that they are. Okay, so Laura, your health department is not allowing you all to do salad bar. They suggested to offer salad, fruit, veggies in a container distributed online by a worker. I tend to agree with them wholeheartedly. That's kind of what I thought they would say. Any chance we can serve one meal for all drive-by kids? You have to do it. You would either have to say all those kids that drive up to get meals are going to get the high school meal because you don't know which is which, or you make up the bags according to K5, 6, 8, 9, 12 or K8, but they have to receive the meal K5, 6, 8, 9, 12 that they are. That was clarified through USDA, and I think that got updated in our Q&A before we posted it. Okay, so Dan, you're telling Marissa you don't think you can count virtual students as eligibles unless you make meals available to them. But if they're if they're students enrolled in the district that are just choosing the district's virtual option, they could be counted because they're enrolled in your school. They're just choosing the virtual option. It's not like it's a student in the maybe the full virtual EPIC model or the K-12 full virtual virtual option. Those you guys aren't going to be able to feed. They're not enrolled in your district. The only reason they're virtual this year is because of COVID, that they've made that an option. If you receive the waiver, can offer versus serve still be used in the actual cafeteria and meals taken out have everything on the tray? Yes, if you receive the waiver, yes. Okay, I've got a couple yeses here, so I'm not sure. Maybe you're answering. I'm not answering. Okay. I'm not sure what the yeses are. They grab one and go. Okay. We are reversing our milk boxes and we will give them their choice of milk. So you're going to actually have someone hand them their milk. And that may be what the health department tells you to do also. Would the offer to serve waiver for high school apply if we are low on employees and trying to get kids through? That's a great question, Tammy. Possibly. Let me get clarification and we'll answer that when we post the Q&As. It doesn't say one way or another in the memo or the waiver. Okay. So I need to change my renewal agreement to no offer versus serve in classroom or grab and go. Well, I don't believe there's an option for grab and go in the renewal agreement. If I remember correctly, am I right? I didn't think so. It's just offer versus serve. Several people liked the milk box question, and I agree, I hadn't thought of the milk box. I heard some county health agencies said if you have the kids use hand sanitizer, they can pick up their own milk. I don't know that either. That would probably, believe it or not, it's different from county health department to county health department on how they're going to answer some of these too. Our health inspector told us that just as long as all items are bagged or kept with lids on the salad bar, it'll be okay. It is no different than grocery stores or convenience stores. Okay. And that is Sand Springs. Did anyone hear what the good news from USDA was? Yes, we got the rates, but we don't have the commodity rate, so I can't issue those yet. We have to have the commodity rate. If we are full remote learning when we start, how will this affect parents filling out the free and reduced apps? It will affect it, and that's a great question, but they have to fill it out in order to claim them as free or reduced. There's been no discussion on extending the benefit from last year except for the 30-day carryover, and once that ends, they go to paid. So, you might consider an online application. I would blow up robocalling any way you can get it out there, emails, letting them know what. And it has to be the whole packet. It just can't be the free and reduced app. It has to include the instructions on filling it out. The rates are out, but the commodity rates are not out yet. That is correct. Grab and go meals, hot or cold, with 2 menus. The grab and go meal can be hot or cold. The number of menus is up to you as a district. If you're sending home hot or cold meals, you need to send home food safety instructions in that bag or container or whatever. You don't want that liability to come back on you. I was told to put our first day of school and last day for the dates of SSO app, and then the 3-week review 3 weeks after the start of school and date, and that way the app can be submitted. The app can be submitted. Then if changes need to be made, they can be made at a later date. That would work just fine. I never thought of that time requirement as a problem, so I will wait for an answer as well. I was asking to know by 9 and have pickup starting at 1 so that all brick and mortar children are in class. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna get, hopefully we can get an answer to that. What about offer versus serve for other grades? If our sites need to go down to one option for all components for opening, do they need to change their application to be served? Well, offer versus serve is optional at all grades 8 and under. PK through 8, offer versus serve is optional, always has been. And it's only ever been required for high school at lunch, 9 through 12 being high school.
If they're concerned about their application, if that's the case, we'll work with them on their application.
We can, yeah, if it's an application issue, we'll kind of work through that with you as we're approving them, because we know there's going to be instances of this year. If your sites go down to one option, do you mean menu option for all components for opening? Do they need to change their application to served? We'll probably have to handle offer versus serve kind of on almost on a case-by-case basis. Dan, we don't have staff to serve a drive-through and serving line simultaneously. Edmund is planning to serve drive-through meals during the half hour before in-school meals start. And that would be acceptable. I agree completely that you need a way to draw a line. They just can't just randomly come up any time of day to get a meal. I get that. You guys have a job to do. You have time frames you have to meet. You just can't have someone doing that. I think, Dan, that instance is fine. I am going to check on the whole calling the day ahead. That's what we are going to check on. But I think that's a great plan. So if they have 4 days in school and 1 day virtual, they are claiming would that not be? Well, if that's the case, but some schools may only do 4 day. And if they are truly only doing 4 day and not virtual on the 5th, they would follow a 4 day menu and not claim on that 5th day. But if you're doing 4 days in school, if you're a district doing 4 days in person in school, and your day 5, be it Friday or Monday, depending on how they break it up, is a virtual day, it's considered an accredited school day, then you can claim it and you would follow the 5-day menu. Does that help? 4-day, but if it's a 4-day week, you got to do the 4 days. And if you're only a 4-day school, you can't serve meals through National School Lunch on that 5th day. It's not an accredited school day. Yes, that's, I believe, what I just answered, Mona. If you're serving students on the virtual day, 5th day would use the 5th day. Yes, if it's an accredited day. To confirm, if a school has a virtual day for all students, we use a 4-day meal pattern. Again, if they're in school for 4 days, and a lot of schools are doing a 5th day virtual day. If that is truly an accredited day and part of the school calendar, you could use the 5-day meal pattern. But if it's only 4 days in school, and a lot of schools did do 4 days last year, and I know there were some rule changes, and I never did hear how those panned out because COVID ended up hitting. There were some new laws that were coming into play. But if the 5th day is a true accredited school day and it's virtual, then yes, you would do the 5-day and the 5-day, or you would claim all 5 days and do the 5-day meal pattern. What is safe distance for students in the cafeteria for seating? 6 feet, 5 feet, or arm's length apart? Everything I read is 6 feet. But that's just what they've been saying from the get-go. I don't know that anybody has put anything out about that at this point. I wonder if that was in that SNA guidance that they put out. I'm not sure. I don't remember seeing it. CDC does say 6 feet. Maybe that would be a good question for the health department as well. If we have to go SSO in the middle of the year, will we still be under NSLP, or will our students go back to all free? At this point, right now, if you go back, if you have to end up going virtual, full virtual in the middle of the year, right now, it would still be under NSLP. That could change. I can only answer that for what I know right now and what we're dealing with. If something change, we're going to continue to have these calls. So just know that if things change or get worse, we will address accordingly. So we meet the 4-day meal pattern for brick and mortar school because we have 1 virtual day weekly. The virtual day requirements would be what exactly? Okay, so they're there for 4 days at brick and mortar. You're going to feed them under it like you normally would. That 5th day, if that's an accredited school day and part of the school calendar, and they're virtual, you can do a grab and go / delivery model through NSLP, claiming them categorically as free, reduced, and paid. Yes, I believe that ketchup packets could be put on a plate instead of children picking them up. I agree, that's probably best, or they're handed to them. So the Serve Safe guidelines for restaurants for serving guests has a lot of great ideas for cafeteria settings. Nice, thank you for that, Steve. If I feed K-8 the high school menu, they get too many calories. They probably will. I mean, I agree with you, Krista. But other than having a bag option for K5, 6, 8, 9, 12, and asking them when they show up, other than that, that's what we got. There's not a good way, but you have to follow the grade group that they are. USDA did tell me that. If you have 4-day meal pattern for in-person and 1-day virtual, or 1-day virtual school day, we still use no, you would do the 5-day. Because if the 5th day isn't accredited, well, it would have to be to claim it. You're saying it is. So yeah, you could do, at that point, you could do the 5-day. I understood my consultant to say each student had to pick up their meal at their site. Well, that's if your point of sale system doesn't, if once you enter them into the system or you're checking them off, however you're doing it, and I'm assuming this is a grab and go setting. I don't know with what you've put in there. Some systems that schools use will have a way for a child to go to any site, but it can be claimed at their school site. So if they come to an elementary school, but they're really a middle schooler, when they put it in the system, it would claim them under the middle school site. That's the biggest thing. They've got to be claimed under the site that they would attend. If a school has a virtual day for all students, we use if the virtual day is on Friday and they've gone to school the other 4 days, you can do the 5-day meal pattern. But if you're only doing a 4-day school and nothing on Friday because you're a 4-day school, you would use the 4-day meal pattern. If the virtual student is enrolled in your district and you offer meals for grab and go, you should be able to claim these students as eligible towards low income. But if you don't let them carry out meals, they have not been able to be counted in the past. But I will verify that, but I know in the past, schools haven't had a virtual option necessarily. So I think that's where the difference is this year because of COVID, I'm going to say about 95% of districts are giving a virtual option to students, as well as an actual, brick and mortar option. And then that's the difference. But I will double check. I believe that is the biggest difference this year. Yes, high school meals would have too many for elementary students. Krista that was something she brought up a second ago on a question. Are you making them pick up the meals at their site instead of any site? That was a question for you, Krista. Okay, sorry, no in the cafeteria. If we are using prepackaged grab and go containers for faster services, if we place an entire tray and allow a student to pick up prepackaged choices, can we claim this as offer versus serve? She's on the phone, limited writing.
So I'm understanding what you're saying, like she's got 3 components in this box, 3 other components in this box. Possibly. Talk to your consultant.
I would, I'm not still quite following, Karen. We maybe either need to maybe have a one-on-one conversation and get clarification on that, or reach out to your area consultant, because you don't have to do just prepackaged choices if you're in the cafeteria and they're coming through the line. You can do, they don't have to be prepackaged. Now, classroom, that might be different, but let's talk or reach out to your area consultant, please. How do we do production records to match meal counts if we're required to count the student meal at their home site? It's going to be completely off. Yeah, I agree, it is. I hadn't really thought about that. Had you, Dana?
I have, but I haven't.
You haven't, she had thought about it, but hadn't come up with a good idea. And that one really hadn't crossed my mind yet.
Probably hasn't crossed USDA's mind either, because they don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. She said it probably hasn't crossed USDA's mind either. We'll do a little bit of checking on that, Shauna, and get that answered in the Q&As. Let's see, the next one, I thought we do agreement like we always do, but in comments, plans during COVID. Well, in some instances, that might be what you have to do. But I think for the most part, there's just very few places in the agreement that you would need to do that. Offer versus serve being one of them potentially. Krista, you're hoping to only distribute at 1 to 2 sites. Yeah, I think that might be an option for some places also. So we're having only having one site set up for pickup for all virtual and COVID. Yeah, I'd like to know, are any of you all doing delivery? That is something that somebody has asked me, and I hadn't heard that many were, but the grab and go was an option. If a child has COVID, is it smart to have a close family member come get food? How would we work around that? Well, I mean, they're going to be just driving up in a car and being handed a meal. I think with masks and gloves, there's going to be minimal contact done there, and potentially standing outside, just getting a name and checking a name off. They're not going to necessarily be walking up and carrying, to you. It'll be through the car window. I mean, yes, that potentially, the potential is there for it to possibly be an issue. If you are offer versus serve and you want to drop offer versus serve for the year, how hard is it for the district to go back to offer versus serve? If you decide to go back to it, you just change back to it and let us know and adjust your application and agreement with us. Not too bad. If a school has a virtual day for all students, well, that depends. Are you serving on the 5th day? Okay, let me finish. Second part of question. So we won't offer grab and go on the virtual day. Offering meals on virtual day becomes 5th day for the week. Then in that case, if the 5th day of school is a virtual day and you are not offering meals, you would follow the 4-day meal pattern. Did I answer that right? Okay.
If virtual day, they're offering meals, they would follow the 5 days.
And if that 5th day is a virtual day and you are offering grab and go on that 5th virtual day, you would follow the 5-day.
Even if you offered that meal on first, it'd still be a 5-day.
Yeah, even if that meal was offered in the middle of the week. A virtual day was in the middle of the week. I have heard that some schools are going to go 2 days, Monday, Tuesday, virtual Wednesday, in school Thursday, Friday. That's still, you serve meals during that virtual day, that's a 5-day week of days, school days, actual school days, accredited school days. Does an online free and reduced app have to be an interactive USDA form? Or can it just be all the questions in a smart form survey? No, it cannot be. It has to be a free and reduced application. What I mean is they typically do offer versus serve, and so their application will usually state that for all grades, but because of how they're opening and they're wanting to do served at the beginning of the school for now, do they need to switch their application? Yeah, you would need to change it if they're not doing offer versus serve. If you go back to offer versus serve, once school starts, you can go back in the application and change it to what you're doing. Concerned about our virtual students enrolled in the district virtual option who do not see a need to fill out a free and reduced lunch app because they are not picking up meals.
Still going to be charging those full-paid students a full-paid price.
Yeah, if they're not going to come and eat, they don't have to fill out a free and reduced application because but if they don't fill one out and they come pick up a meal, they will be charged for that meal. It's full price for that meal. That they become a paid child, and you'll bill them for their meal. But free and reduced applications have never been required to be filled out. ever. You can't require a student or a parent of a student to fill out a free and reduced lunch application. Can you utilize coaches and other staff members at the school to help deliver and hand out meals to classrooms? Yeah, if you're doing a bag to the classrooms and you need additional staff to hand those out, they of course you'd want them to have gloves and have a mask and all that, and they can help hand out meals. They're not preparing or anything like that. They're just taking maybe a cart with meals on it and taking it to a classroom and handing out meals. That's acceptable. Some of our weeks are 4 days and some are 5 days with the virtual day, so meal requirements would change according to the week. Correct. Is it possible for aides to help deliver meals to the classrooms to be able to use social distancing? Yes, that would be similar to what I just answered as far as other teachers. They're just simply handing a meal out. The meal's already packaged. They're just handing out a meal. Is it allowable to serve high school serving size to all grades? No, and that's because of the whole under National School Lunch, you've got calories, and that's basically it, calories. And serving sizes are a little bit different too. So you can do it at breakfast, but you can't do it at lunch. Dana thinks we might need to get some more clarification on this. She's following what's being asked, so we will follow up with that as well. You taking notes on the ones you want to follow up on? Oh, well, that's true too. Sorry, we're having a sidebar conversation. Yes, Nancy, yes. If you had virtual kids in your district the last few years and they didn't come to school and eat, you're right, they couldn't count them. This is a little bit different, but I am going to go ahead and get clarification on that. Are we required to offer meals on the virtual day? With the free meals, we had low participation, and if they are not free meals for all, yeah, I think that's the case too. That is another question I've posed to them, and other states have posed, is it, if they're doing virtual, or is the school required to feed them? And that has been posed multiple times on our calls with USDA, and we don't have any guidance yet, so we're waiting on that as well. Okay. You think I may have already answered this, so we apologize, but just to clarify, do we have to offer meals to those students that are enrolled in our district virtual option? We're waiting on guidance on that. I have a feeling they're going to say yes, but that's just my gut telling me that. Can you use a roster in the cafeteria line? You've always been able to use a roster in the cafeteria line if you don't have a point of sale system. And there are some pretty rural schools that don't, and they do a checkoff roster weekly. The roster can't state the student's status, free, reduced, or paid in any way, shape, or form on it. Basically, it's just going to have their name and the Monday through Friday option to check off for breakfast and lunch. I think you would just need to confirm that they are enrolled in the other school, but the meal should be claimed according to free, reduced, or paid status by the serving site, so it would line up with production records. Oh, are you referring back to, that must be referring back to Shauna's question that we were going to double check on production records. I think maybe so. Okay, Shauna put a phone number. Call EPI on call. They can help with those COVID questions and contact. Is that someone with the health department, Shauna? Maybe. I think you've already answered this, so I apologize, but just prior, do we have to offer meals? Okay, we're gonna get more clarification on that. This summer, we sat the meals on a table and stepped back, and the parent got out of the car and picked up meals, no contact. That's an option too. Shauna agrees with Dan. That's what we do too, Deborah. Okay, walking up and grabbing the meal or the parent off a table. Okay. Was the question brought up about production sheets? Our system credits the site a child is enrolled. So if they pick up at the elementary, the food is made there, but claimed at a different site. Can we just, we're going to double check on that. We are. That's a question we will pose to them. Dana's written that down. If a student gets COVID and eats in the cafeteria, will the cafeteria have to close down for 2 weeks? That's a decision that the district has to make. If you do the 5th day as virtual, could you send the meals home on the day before for the virtual day? You could, if that's going to be, if that 5th virtual day is going to be a credited school day, yes. And probably in most cases it will be, but there's going to be in some cases it won't be. We are a 4-day school week. We will be going to virtual school virtually for 10 or so days. Do we have to offer grab and go meals on those virtual days? That's what we're waiting to find out. That has been posed to USDA. If my students use cards, what should we do? Do you mean like a card they swipe to be counted? I'm assuming you probably don't mean a credit card to pay for meals. But you could, I guess. If they have a way to swipe the card or scan the card as they go through and take it with them, I'm not sure that's an issue. Do you see anything? I don't know of many schools that do credit card either, but
I would change that to maybe online payments.
and that may not be pertaining to payments. It may just be pertaining to claiming that meal for the day. They enter a PIN or they use a card. If they use a card to count that meal, they're either swiping it or scanning it, and you would just have them keep their card.
Less handling, the better. Right?
Yeah, Becky in our field, communication with consultants and any changes throughout the year is very important. And if you're using a staff or a teacher to check off a roster, they need to be trained. If they're just simply handing a child a meal, that's one thing. But if you're expecting a teacher or a staff member or an aide to check off a roster, there needs to be some training done there. That is very true. But just handing a meal that's just a full lunch meal, all components are in it, and you're just handing it, that's a little bit different. You can communicate the educational title funding benefits for the district to encourage virtual students to apply even if they're not eating school meals. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea, Dan. Get other people involved as well because it affects other funding. Connie, do you have a way to print their barcodes on paper? That's a good idea. There are some schools that do have a barcode printout, and it's just a barcode with the student's name, and you can print them by class or you can print them all together. There are different ways to do that. That's a good idea. I did forget about that. It's highly recommended for staff to wear masks if you're referring to the cafeteria. Again, we're only going to discuss cafeteria, not teachers and such. I would definitely, we are recommending it, but I would check with your health department. They may be requiring it. We are tentatively planning delivery for our areas, have not confirmed if we will have enough resources. Okay, so we are going to try and prepare elementary grab and goes at one of our elementary sites, and the secondary students will be from our high school site to be picked up. This way we can still menu the age of the students that we normally do. We will be starting normal with a virtual option. Yeah, okay, so that's one of the first I've heard that you are gonna, good for you guys to try and get that done. It's gonna be a heavy task, but I bet you guys get it done. If they are eating in their classroom, how do we charge them? You've got to give them a way to pay, be it in the, and again, I'm not, by no means do you want to get the teachers involved in that, but maybe they can come to the cafeteria and pay at some point, you know, before school or something like that, or they, or you just put out even maybe a letter stating that because of what's going on, we're just going to do billing this year. We're not, or a prepay option online. A lot of districts have that option. look into that possibility also. Yes, if the coach or aide or teacher is handing that meal out, someone has to have checked that child off as well. And maybe the teacher's doing that, I don't know, but there has to be a point of service meal count even in the classroom. There has to be. And so if you have a coach or an aide or another staff member doing that other than child nutrition, they need to have training on that. That has not been waived. Point of service meal count has not been waived, be it the classroom, be it grab and go or delivery, be it on the line. Does your teacher take a roster list of names of children eating in the classroom and then enter them in the computer? That's, again, going to have to determine, that's going to have to be determined on a case-by-case basis at the district, how that's going to look if you're serving in the classroom. Who takes the count? Is it the person who brings the meal to the classroom? Is it the teacher as the child walks, you know, a meal is put on their desk, or the child walks by and picks up a meal off the cart? There's lots of different options there that you're going to have to come up with. So are you saying grab and go pickup for virtual students has to be given the meal pattern for their grade? Yes. The meal pattern for their grade. For the virtual day, could they take it home? I'm assuming you mean on that fourth day, could you give them breakfast and lunch for the next day? Again, if it's a accredited school day, you can, and I would also include, you really, if you need to include food safety instructions. Food safety still has to be a priority with all of this. I still do check off roster every day, breakfast and lunch. Paper and pencil are always my favorite way. And that's okay. You need to maintain all those records, so you'll maintain that list every day. Once you check off that list, Rebecca, are you putting it into a system? Or maybe you're a school district that doesn't have a point of sale system, and that's a possibility. We do have some rural schools that don't. The epidemiology on-call health department is a great resource. By the way, they're about to put out guidance for schools. Yes, we heard that. I heard that on the call before this one as well, that they're getting ready to issue school guidance. So thank you for that, Shauna. So it sounds like students will have to pick up their meals at their home sites only. If your system doesn't have a way to separate that out when they're entered, then yes, they will, Tammy. We're asking our students when they get to school to complete a form in the classroom, and one of my ladies will go to the classrooms. It will say they are eating in the cafeteria or they bought their lunch. Their milk choice will be a place they check. We will prepare and send meals to class with everything they need. All elementary will be eating in the classrooms. We are hoping that the sheet they complete when they first get to school will help us from over preparing. That's probably a great idea. Cindy, what school are you with? You might be a good resource for some people out there. I don't recommend them leaving their card. I recommend them swiping their card and taking it with them. If we give out 5 days of meals, do the meals, yes, have to be claimed by day. You won't have another way to do that in your system because you can't enter them all. You can't enter more than one meal a day in a system, and you wouldn't be able to do meals ahead of time. So yes. So you would have your roster that you checked off when they picked up meals, and every day you'd need to make the entry for the meals. If I have multiple meal waivers, number 34, that's mealtime flexibility, can send home meals for the virtual day Friday with yes, but include food safety instructions for that meal. Unless it's a shelf-stable meal, you need to include food safety instructions. You don't want that meal if it has a cold milk in it, which it should, unless it's shelf-stable milk, it's gonna have milk in it, to sit in a backpack overnight, and that child may not eat it till late in the day on Friday. That's a problem. Food safety, you have to remember food safety. It's not going anywhere during all this. Lynn, they use a barcode, and the lady uses a clicker to count each student as they come through and scans the barcode. Okay, I don't have a manual in front of me right this moment. You claimed at the serving site, but you can add it to the number of eligibles. The eligible count stays with the homeschool. Okay, we will check on that as well. How much can we require with prepayments? I don't want cash changing hands at the grab and go curve. I don't blame you. I wouldn't either. And I want to, and you want to reduce the time an in-person kid is in line. I agree. We have an online payment option and checks are okay. But what about my unbanked families? I would do as much prepayment as possible, but yes, they do have to have maybe, they do have to have a way to pay at the school if they want, or on, that does have to be an option for that day's meal that day. They have to have a way to pay for that meal that day. That's just something they do have to have. So you can encourage it as much as you want, but you're always going to have someone who wants to pay, and you may just have to do that. It may not happen very often, but that does have to be an option. If you give out 5 days of meals at once, is it okay to use? It was this summer, Steve. They said no, and then they kind of changed their stance on that. Let me see if that's going to extend to National School Lunch. Can you write that one down, Dana? We will find out, Steve. Ideally, I hope it can. I talked to Rhonda yesterday, so I know what you're talking about, Steve. Where you're going with that. So let's find out for you. I enter meals from the checklist into mass lunchroom. I file all checklists and save with your records. Okay. So once you check off, you enter them into mass. Okay. I would go ahead, Rebecca, I would save those paper copies in case there was ever an issue that you forgot, or I would just save those, just FYI. That's just my recommendation. Cindy Tecumseh. So Cindy, I'm going to say you sound like you have got a great plan going on. So if there's some new people out there, Cindy I'm going to put you out there, Cindy. You're a good resource. I hope you don't mind, but I just did it. Still need POS, even if they get count at the beginning. Point of service does not work for the way our students come to lunch with our program. We tried it and it was a huge mess. Paper pencil is just easier, but you're going back and putting it in a mass, like you said. I would just hang on to those paper copies that you're doing as well. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. We're all doing our best at this point with everything that's going on. Okay, Dan, we'll update the page number for this year. Okay, we'll check on that. That's a good option. Thank you, Deborah. Put the payment in an envelope with the child's name on it. Again, you do come in, you could always have the problem though, they may not have exact change. It could go on and on. I understand that. I think that's just gonna have to be kind of handled on a case-by-case basis. There's not a perfect solution for that. Recommendations for online payment vendor software. Can some of you put some ideas into the chat for her? She's asking for good online payment vendor software systems. I know a lot of schools have them. No, it does not. Almond milk does not count as milk if it's shelf stable. Stacy, oh, okay, so someone's setting up PayPal. Okay, it's a Cash App. So somebody put in here they use Gabbert communications for online payments. I may have said that wrong. They use My School Account. Cindy is more than willing to help people out. Thank you, Cindy. That's what it takes. Everybody helping everybody. Good, Rebecca. Thank you. I'm glad to hear you saying that. Holdenville uses Mosaic through Heartland, and they have My School Bucks, PayPal, Primero Edge, and Heartland, which was NutriKids years ago. That's what I remember it as. My School Bucks, others using PayPal. Pam at Moore uses My Payments Plus, K-12. Some are going to start using PayPal School Bucks. Many POS software companies already have an online payment option. If you have a POS system, It's a good point. Check with your software company.
You can check with your student data system.
Maybe the student data system too.
Something to add on.
That's great. Thank you for helping Stacy out. We came to the end. Were there some at the beginning we missed?
I think we answered most of them before you got in here. We were trying.
Okay.
There were some in the Q&As.
What you're going to have to do, yeah, with CEP this year, Steve, for grab and go or delivery, you are going to have to do a roster with a child's name, and you're going to have to actually check it off because we have to ensure that that meal goes to a child. So by check, you're going to have to do a checkoff list, unfortunately. So it's, yeah, you are.
And then we had one
Thank you.
school asked about fresh fruit and vegetable program. Right now, there's no waiver for fresh fruit and vegetable.
I know. Right now, there is not a waiver for fresh fruit and vegetable to go home in a grab and go setting. We will have to do a state waiver for that, and I do plan on doing one so that you all can use that money. Thank you, Cindy. Again, we will do this on August 5th. That's on the screen now. Again at 2:30. If we need to do something sooner, we would do that if for something pretty pressing. But we haven't really had that come up. We have a call tomorrow with USDA. It got changed from Tuesday this week to Thursday. I don't know if that's a permanent change or not, but we'll get some answers to today's questions and also put them in the Q&A. Sometimes we get the answers when we ask them. Sometimes they get back to us in a couple days. So if a parent picks up meals for a virtual student, yes, if that's part of your plan, you absolutely can. And I know that some schools did that this summer for summer feeding and SSO. Yeah, so we do plan on continuing these calls. So laptops with our point of sales ready to use. Okay. So we do plan on continuing these calls even once school starts. Again, we're all going into the unknown. We've never started a school with a virtual option, as well as an in-person, brick and mortar option. This is a first for all of us. So we're going to work through it. We've worked through it since March 13th when all this started. So it's going to be an adjustment for everybody, but we can get through it. We've done it for what, 4 months now, roughly? We can do it. You guys are some of the best at adjusting to things out there in a school district. So can you use a classroom roster? As long as a point of service count is taken, you could. That roster cannot have if it's a free, reduced, or paid child. That is an issue with overt identification, as USDA calls it. Oh, Krista, Shauna, the health department just released their return to school guidelines. Good. Now I'm just waiting for that USDA playbook. They keep saying that's coming. Be a red letter day if they'd release theirs today too, wouldn't it? Baby steps, baby steps. Okay, I think we're done. One of our longer calls, but we had lots of questions. Krista, can you go ahead before we sign off and where did you find that guidance? Somebody's asking. Serving in the classroom, can we use laptops or rosters? And I think you maybe meant as needed. Whatever you can do, use whatever you can to get a point of service count. That's the most important thing. As the child receives a meal, they're being counted. Okay, Krista said somebody posted it on Facebook, but she's searching the Oklahoma State Department of Health website right now. Yes, Dina, happy birthday. Hope you've had a great day, Dina. And whoever else's birthday, happy birthday. We are done officially with this call.